Mr. Franken.
Okay.
The reason we're talking to you, Mr. Frank, is not only because, of course, we're an affiliate of yours, but also...
Well, you're not an affiliate of...
or whichever it works. So
you're an affiliate of Air America.
There you go. And, well, Congressman Dingell has been very vocal about Hezbollah, but I guess his words weren't strong enough for Rush Limbaugh, and who has kind of twisted some of the words coming from Congressman Dingell just to paint a worse picture of him. Does this surprise you that this is kind of a tactic that Rush would take?
Of course not. I mean, this is par for the course. I guess this started with the blog. It's actually from Minnesota. What are they called? Power. I don't know. There was some blog that did that. That took some of what the congressman said and then didn't include the condemnation of Hezbollah. No. So it was sort of, it's what the right does a lot.
Well, I had a chance to actually talk to Congressman Dingell Saturday, and the part that bothers him most is that he's not. I will say you do have something in common with Rush. You have a politically slanting talk show on the radio, but Congressman Dingell's take on it was that Rush is not held to any journalistic codes whatsoever. Do you feel that you are when you do your show? Do you try to stick as straight to the truth, or do you kind of view it as an entertainment thing?
Well, no, we actually. There's a difference between being a journalist and being an entertainer, and I guess I'm an entertainer, but I do hold myself to standards of truth-telling, and I think that's what we're talking about. Rush, we don't do what Rush does. I remember we had David Brock on, who used to be sort of a bit of a right-wing hitman, and he's kind of come over to our side and does Media Matters for America now, and we have David on every week. And I remember the first time David came on, he was in our studio. He usually comes from Washington, but he was in our studio when we were up in New York. And I played something from a Frontline on PBS from a special they did on Bush's relationship to Jesus. And they had this guy on who had been liaison for the George H.W. Bush campaign to the evangelical community and took George W. Bush around, who had been born again, to these groups to show them that he was a true believer, etc. So he is quoted on the thing as saying, like, does he manufacture his belief in Jesus and all this stuff? Yes. Is it also sincere? Yes. Do I know when which is which, and does he? I don't know. And so we played that whole quote. But what was interesting is we could have just played it, does he manufacture this faith in Jesus? Yes. We could have just played that. And we didn't, because it wouldn't have been ethical. It would have been taking the quote out of context. And I remember playing it that day and making that point. And Brock, who had been with these right-wing guys for a number of years and really got to know how they worked, how they operated, actually started to tear up because he realized he had joined the right side. He had come on to the right side. And it would have been very easy for us to present to our audience that a guy who knew Bush really well was saying that his belief in Jesus was totally manufactured. But we didn't do that because it wasn't true. That's not what the guy was saying. He was saying that sometimes he gins it up and sometimes he doesn't, and it's hard to tell which is which. Which is, you kind of can understand how a politician might do that, and it's a nuanced look at Bush. Where the same thing it was kind of in this thing with Dingell, where he said something that without the literal time when he says literal point where he condemns Hezbollah for its violence could be taken as not condemning Hezbollah for its violence, and it's completely just dishonest. And that's what they do. That's just par for the course. It's not, you know. I'm only on today talking to you about this because you called me up about this. This isn't like, you know, the scales fell from my eyes about what they do. This is just a very, you know, all in the day's work.
Yeah. What Rush Limbaugh does for a living, is that the catalyst of what you do for a living now? Seeing that you've always had
it's not the same thing at all.
No, I know, but I mean, you being on the radio now to get your point across without using, well, you do use some comedy, but it's not all, you know, now it's for real, and you...
I use comedy, yeah.
Well, I know, but you definitely took a stance against Rush before you were on the air. Is
Sure.
he one of the reasons you're on the air trying to speak the other side?
Yeah, it's, I don't know, something like 22%, I think it was, in a Gallup poll of Americans said they were, they got most of their news from talk radio. And when I was researching Lies and Lying Liars, when I read that statistic, and that was probably the one thing that most made me say, you know, I got to go on and push back. I got to spend 3 hours a day pushing back against these guys.
Well, I listen every day, and actually, for the past 7 years of my life, I worked at a station that did Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity back to back, and that was out in Jackson, Michigan, very conservative area, and. And when I listen to Sean and Bill and Rush, I even say I'm completely nonpartisan. What they do, I feel is dangerous, but when I listen to Air America, what you do, I don't feel is dangerous. I don't think that you're doing twisting words. I don't think that you're trying to make enemies. I think you guys are just trying to get the point across. And I think you guys are doing it well.
Well, you know, I wish I got to listen to the other shows as much, but I'm working to try to make sure that my show, you know, is accurate and that I know what I'm talking about. Certainly, I can speak for what we do on our show, and we are scrupulous. If we get something wrong, we correct it, and it's the only way to I think in the long run it's the only way to do it. But you know, obviously they're succeeding. Doing it the opposite way. So. Well,
you're knocking the ball out of the park. I enjoy it very much. Yeah, I got one last question for you. I've known I was going to be a journalist for a really long time, so certain things always stuck out in my head. And the continuous bit you did on Saturday Night Live, what was your introduction when you would go out there and you had the satellite on your head? What was you were called the self-contained, what was that whole, what was your title?
The one-man mobile uplink unit.
The one-man mobile uplink unit. All right, yeah. Beautiful. That's still hands down. And then when you came back and did it years later, it's still one of the funniest things in the world.
Yeah, I did it in Iraq, actually.
Yeah,
you went over to Iraq and did it. Talked to 2 soldiers.
We need to bring that back. If you ever want to be on Ann Arbor radio doing that every once in a while, we would absolutely.
It probably doesn't work on radio.
No, you think that's just it? It would work. You could pretend you're anywhere, do it just like a Stewart thing.
There's something. It's a real prop, you know. The satellite dish on top of a helmet. I mean, it's not a satellite dish. It's a flying saucer.
It was just so well done.
And with a basketball pump in the middle of the flying saucer.
You always had a lot of luck with your characters from Stewart. Yeah, every time you hit they usually hit them out of the park. They usually went pretty well.
Well, you know, they weren't on the show if I didn't hit them out of the park because I wasn't a cast member. I was just a featured player. So.
Yeah, but how long were you with Saturday Night Live?
15 seasons.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, sir, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and I appreciate it.
Okay, Timothy. Thanks,
you. Thanks, Sam. Bye-bye.